I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon so far. I hope you've discovered something new and met new people in the break. For this next section, we're going to try something ambitious. We're going to propose something provocative. It's time to debate whether creatives should run our cities. For this section, I'm going to hand over to Simona Rabkova, who's going to tell you more. She's going to introduce the speakers who are going to be debating on both sides of the argument, and she's going to start the discussion. Simona is a creative entrepreneur, freelancer, mentor, visiting lecturer, and currently a doctoral researcher at the University of Warwick. I'm going to hand over.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for still being here with us, both in person and also remote. What a wonderful event this is, and I'm really, really glad that I can be here, and I was invited to host this debate. So I'm currently doing my PhD at Warwick in Cultural Policy Studies, and my kind of main interest in my research work, but also professional career as a freelancer, is in cultural relations, cultural diplomacy, country branding, but also creative entrepreneurship and how we can, basically everything we heard today. I was so glad to hear what other speakers said, because I really agree with them that we need to create opportunities and platforms for creatives and artists to be able to do their work and to have kind of whole skill set on how to put your vision into practice and make it possible. And for that, sometimes I believe that you need also a little bit of business skills. So this is what I'm trying to also teach my students. That's a bit about me. I'm also running my own theater company and kind of multitasking different things, as I believe most people who work in culture and arts. So today we have an amazing topic, which is if creatives should run our cities, and we have here great speakers, which I'm going to introduce. But before that, I will tell you more about how we'll be running this debate. So, firstly, we will hear two defenses and two challenges of our debate statement, and we will then have questions from between the speakers and then from the audience, and finally we will vote. To explain how we'll be doing the vote, so for those of you who are here with us, we will do old school style, so just raising your hand if you are agree or disagree with the statement. And then for those of you who are joining us online, we have mirror board, so just before the vote, you will see a link to pop up into the YouTube live chat, and you can either press on agree or disagree as well. I will remind you this again just before we will have time to vote. All right, so, and then we will decide what we think of the statement. So now, before we kick off the debate, I'm going to introduce our speakers today. So from Youthful Cities in Vancouver, we have Grace Aaraj and Cara Simpson joining us online. And then next up, here in person with us in Coventry, we have Xuan, here, Cathy, Lee, and also just freshly joined us today, Ben, George Pico, from Youth Constituency of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was my biggest fear of today, to pronounce this long name, and I still misspelled it, so sorry. But shortly, YOUNGO, and this is what I'm gonna stick with. And then we have crossing the digital and physical from the representatives from the FabLab, Hilary Ray, and Guilherme Schendel, who is in Brazil, joining us on Zoom. And then finally, we have Karina Izquierdo, who is an architect and alumni of the British Council Future Leaders Connect program, who is joining us from Mexico. Welcome. Okay, so should we start with the first defense? And I'm heading back to Vancouver to Grace and Cara. Let's go. You can start with your defense, if we can all hear you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Cara Simpson. I am the Communications and Programming Lead for Youthful Cities. Today, I'm speaking to you from the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, alternatively known as Vancouver, Canada. It's 9 a.m. here, so we're up bright and early. At Youthful Cities, a lot of our work is centered around data collection and analysis, which helps inform how urban cities are performing for the young people living in them. And like many organizations, COVID forced us to rethink our strategy and move completely online, with most of our team being spread across Canada. We shifted our focus to build a youth-informed open data hub and then began teaching a data literacy program to support youth-serving organizations tell data-driven stories that support their organizational goals or inform better programming. One of my biggest takeaways from that has been that data does a fantastic job at identifying problems and speaking to the effectiveness of solutions, but creatives are essential when it comes to actually conceptualizing what those solutions might look like. You also need creative minds to tell the stories of these problems and solutions to gain public support, because if communities aren't engaged or they haven't bought into the idea, you're already fighting a losing battle. And while data discovery and analysis is a huge part of what we do, it's also important to us as an organization to find creative ways to tell stories with the data so we can bring awareness to these issues that youth face and put creative solutions into action. And I'd love to pass it over to Grace, who's previously worked with Youthful Cities and can speak to her experience working with creatives and how important they are to the cities they live in.
Thank you, Cara. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Grace, and full disclosure, I'm a creative myself. My opinion is actually shaped by the fact that I'm an architect, I'm an educator, and I myself have lived for long periods of times in 4 different cities. I'm joining you today from Vancouver. I've been here for 6 months. So yes, I am pro creatives should run our cities while we are making creative cities. And the first thought that I had when I was reading that statement is, who are we making cities for? And second question was, who are the creatives? I think any city should be made in a way that is inclusive and that also encourages diversity. And that's easy, that's something everyone agrees on. However, when we talk about creatives, it almost sounds maybe elitist or a little bit, it includes a little bit of exclusion or exclusivity, right? We talk about creative people thinking they are only artists and they are potentially separated from the communities. However, I'm backing up my argument by the fact that creatives don't have to be full-time creatives. Yes, they can be artists, sculptors, graffiti artists, educators like myself, or architects, but it's very important that we address creativity from an attitude point of view and not a career. So I am with creative creating our cities, whether they are creative minds, creative hands, creative passionates, creative advocates. And in that sense, it's not only the planners, the politicians, the investors that should be running our cities, creatives should be running our cities.
All right. Thank you so much. Is Cara? Okay. So that was really interesting defense, and for our first challenge, we have here. First challenge we have Cathy, Zihan, and Ben. So up to you now.
Great, thanks so much. Yes, thanks so much. And yeah, I think it's very interesting to have this opportunity to share about different views. And of course, our opinion is that creatives shouldn't be the only one running or dominating the cities. And then there are definitely reasons there. But to start with, I guess a brief introduction of the organization, actually a constituency that we represent, probably would be helpful. So YOUNGO, which is the youth constituency of the UNFCCC, which in short is UN Climate Change. So we're the ones representing youth voices in the UN process on climate change, including speaking in events, contributing, making sure that youth are being included in their projects at an international level, at a national level, and also in terms of really being included from policy to implementation. And of course, nevertheless, we also contribute to the policy documents to ensure that youth views are being reflected and that the policy will not be implemented without the engagement of youth. So I guess I'll pass it on to Zihan to first share a bit about his thoughts and also why creatives shouldn't run the city.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. I think, first of all, what we at YOUNGO, and three of us at least, really believe is we don't object to the statement per se, so we definitely want more creative involvement in running cities. We want more creatives to be in charge of, certain aspects of running cities. But there are some reservations or perhaps some food for thought that we need to kind of think about when we think about creative running of cities. The first is, I think just now, Youthful Cities was talking about the need to be inclusive, the need to be diverse. And I think the best way to ensure diversity and inclusion in running cities is not so much to focus on creatives as a specific title or profile, but more to facilitate creativity as a process, which everybody can be involved in. Like you and I, even though I might not be an artist myself, but all of us here have creative minds and creative capabilities and capacities that can be developed if policymakers are able to integrate these, concerns for creativity in their urban policymaking. So our first argument really is to share the fact that instead of having creatives run the cities per se, we need policy infrastructure and policymakers who understand the need to include and incorporate creativity in every urban decisions that they're making, and to kind of unleash and cultivate the creative side that is inherent in all of us. And I think that goes also follows up to my second point on why creatives should not run the city, which is we do acknowledge the role that creatives have to play in terms of contributing as Youthful Cities and as FabLab probably will share as well later on. But we also think that there is a need to integrate different voices, different stakeholders in collectively deciding what a city looks like. So in our work, for example, at YOUNGO, in advocating for climate change, we see that different stakeholders bring about different skill sets that are all kind of equally important or equally prominent and deserve to be featured. So, for example, creatives for their work in showcasing the artistic side, and also pushing people to be more inspired to run cities and to address climate change. But at the same time, we need, for example, the expertise contributed by scientists, by engineers who have solutions to make our cities more sustainable, more youthful as well. So I guess my point really is the fact that, to keep things short, the idea that creatives alongside other stakeholders should all be involved in the process of running cities, and that we should see creativity not so much in terms of the profile and specific position, but more of a process that should be integrated into urban decision making. Yeah.
Totally agree with that. And just to briefly add, and one that I believe that the current structure of how cities are run does not really support. For example, the current structure might not support very creative people to be, for example, 100% running the city, to be the mayor and every single one in the government. If everyone only have a strong focus on creativity instead of, for example, really science or for example, the facts and really boring parts, for example, legal documents, etc. If they truly focus on being creative and to really not focusing on or not paying attention to some could be boring, but also very important processes, then the city wouldn't actually run efficiently and effectively and wouldn't really encourage creativity in many ways. And also just to add that creativity, of course, is great, but as Sahan mentioned, that it is only one element that, of course, as society runs, we need lawyers, we need, for example, people working in taxation like me by profession, and also people working in the government doing administration work, which should really have a balance of everything. So if we only care about creativity, if we put it as a priority higher than everything else, then I think it wouldn't really have the best outcome as we might have imagined in mind. But yeah, Ben, anything else you want to add?
I think that to the statement, creatives should run our cities, we have to also wonder why. And from our background, which is in environmental issues, the answer is probably, are creatives and creativity the best way to answer these problems? And so we had two people talk from Vancouver, and Vancouver is a city that's been titled as a very sustainable city. But I would question that because if you look at it, it's a city where the dichotomy between nature and the urban is very salient, very apparent. And the answer to that is probably the indigenous peoples of the region who have been caring for the land for very long. And those are probably not the creatives we're talking about. So, I mean, of course, I don't think any of us are questioning the notion that creativity is important, and that creatives should be central in creating the future, creating visions of the future that enable us to move past it, but it must also be informed by ideology when it comes to running. It's not just art for art, it's art for a purpose, art for creating hope, for creating an idea of the future, and then we bring ideology into it and we look at, are the representations of the future that we're creating really subversive? And much of the input for that is actually not necessarily creative, it's already here in the knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities.
Okay, inspiring and strong challenge here. So now we have our second defense from Hilary and Guilherme, who is joining us from Brazil. So we have this cross connection, both physical and digital. Many of you, they're from FabLab, so many of you might have already heard of them and had an opportunity to find out more through all the open house and workshops which they were running today. And I'm heading over to you, Hilary, to find out more about them and to hear their defense.
So we're on the pro side of the statement, and I'm just going to point out again, the Fab Lab's right across from here. Definitely go and visit. There's lots of things happening there. It's a really neat resource. I'm sort of going to go into what Fab Labs are about. So Fab Labs provide a space and the tools to develop ideas, systems across a range of different disciplines. This provides the cross-pollination of ideas and different fields of interest brought together. Our approach is to prototype and test ideas to evaluate them fast and at a low cost. Only through testing do we know if our ideas really work. Innovation assumes that some ideas will flourish and some ideas fail. This process is really important. FabLab is all about testing and trying out. It's a process. So this experimentation with design and develops a strong sense of community and fosters skills to be shared to empower community members to try new things. The FabLab movement has its roots in upcycling different materials and machines. So here in Coventry, we have a FabLab program that supports the community by doing outreach, for upskilling community members so you can try out new things, learn new digital skills. And then the key programs that we have right now is we're doing reuse and recycling of materials and furniture. So this is the eco-furniture project that we're running. And then we also have a couture fashion program that we're running, which you can see a sample sort of on the stage right now. And it's upcycling fabric. So we have all this cool, interesting fabric that's been donated from every other source and stuff. And it's how we repurpose and reuse this fabric, because there's a lot of waste in the fashion industry. So we find also that many people who walk through the FabLab door don't think they're creative, that this idea that you're not creative is prevalent. But the reality is everyone has the potential to be creative. It's how you output and use that. So on to some other unique things. FabLab also does stuff with businesses in the area. So for one example, they helped create a unique solution for Purdy's Pet Shop in Radford. And it was a really interesting sign. So if you ever get to go to Radford, definitely check the pet store out. They have a really cool sign. And that was, they went to them with an idea, and they were output with an actual sign at the end. So I'm just going to say FabLab is an international organization. There's lots of Fab Labs all over the world. I'm going to turn it over to Gil at FabLab Sorocabra to, I'm sorry if I killed the pronunciation, to talk more about their Fab Lab there.
Hello, everyone. I'm Guilherme. I'm originally from Brazil, and I live here. My background is in civil engineering. I work at a Fab Lab, and that's where I'm speaking from. So while I'm here, I have to wear a face mask. If you have any issues hearing me, please let me know. And during the pandemic, Fab Labs across the globe shared design for PPE. And only here at our Fab Lab, we produced over 10,000 face shields like this. Here in Sorocaba, the city where I live, we are part of the Fab City movement, which proposes to relocalize production to the cities and its surroundings. However, to be fair, that's a hard thing to do, and we still do not have a playbook or a manual of how to do it. But it's still something to work at. Nevertheless, as someone who works at a school Fab Lab, I'm at the university here. helping students to materialize their ideas. I'm a strong believer in project-based learning. So we try to minimize theory and learn by doing. With this method of learning, a range of unique projects have come from our FabLab. For example, an auto-irrigation system that was developed here that knows when the soil is dry because of sensors, and then with a pump, it provides water to the plants when needed. This can benefit a large range of urban farms. Another program is the Green Roof project that aims to add additional green space that provides a cooling effect for the building while reducing its carbon footprint and creating additional ecosystems. And without the FabLab, there would not be a facility to prioritize and to test and implement these concepts. Therefore, my vision is cities with FabLab-like places in every corner, each one with its own personality and niche, where creatives have means and support to prototype ideas or projects, social experiments, art, and all these ideas have to be documented and shared to replicate in other neighborhoods, other cities, other countries, and people who are replicating it are able to modify and change the ideas to their own reality. That said, I believe the way to develop more friendly and creative cities is providing ways for people to try new approaches and start locally on small scale. Ideas like urban farms, local recycling of materials, on-demand production of goods like furniture and home utilities are ideas that have place to grow. And that's the FabLab vision we would like to share. I appreciate the opportunity of being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, FabLab. So that's really interesting. They create creatives to run our cities. And I really like what you said, Hilary, that everyone can be creative. I mean, we just need to find it and embrace it. So now to our final speaker, Karina in Mexico. And she will be saying the second defense of our statement. Up, heading to you. Ready?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today I will be answering with two hats. Firstly, I'm an architect, so my creative and design mindset to the city is influenced by that. And second, from the policy dimension of my work. I don't work as an architect traditionally speaking. I transitioned into the urban policy area for the transformation of cities towards sustainability and tackling inequality agendas. So I'd like to start with the following. Creative economies represent 5.4% of the UK economy and are part of a global market of £2.25 billion. They represent one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. In Mexico, where I'm originally from and where I'm calling from, there is no established figure for the whole of the creative economy, which is problem number one. However, in 2017, it was estimated it represented around 3.2% of the country's GDP. So what these figures tell us is the growing importance of these activities, but more so, in relation to what we're debating here today, the potential for innovation in urban policy. I don't think solutions to the level of complexity of the problems that cities face will be brought about by one sector alone, in this case the creative sector. Instead, we need to be talking about how to better incorporate the skills and mindsets that creatives can contribute to a change of paradigm. Because it is clear that our current system of governance and policy mechanisms is unfit to respond responsibly, effectively, and in a fair way to issues such as climate change, social inequalities, and disruptions such as COVID. Despite that, replacing the power of one sector for another will only reproduce the same disparity in which one discipline is prioritized or the contribution to the economy is predominant over the segregation of others. Instead, we could be talking about what is it that the creative leaders and design services can do differently to bring it together to the policy discourse to create more human-centered, sensitive decision-making processes, either to inform policy or to evaluate and monitor policy, to communicate policy, So it is that identification of what design can do that needs to be matched with policy. And it is not often that design and creatives work alongside with policymakers. And I believe that that's where the potential lies, not in hierarchical removal of one over the other, but as complementary and innovative processes to rethink the role of creatives as core actors in the development of inclusive public agendas. So creatives can be that bridge between policy level thinking and front end service delivery, something that the public administration has long been grappling with. They could act as mediators, facilitators. So I'd see it more as creatives as enablers. In fact, this debate itself is a creative exercise, and all of the points of view and experiences that I've heard so far are extremely valuable. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here today, just to wrap up my argument. Should creatives run the cities? I'd say no, because what they know best is to create new levels of social value. So those in charge of running the city should provide these mechanisms so they can be part of the policy process along with other city makers in a way that their specific skill sets are leveraged and integrated into the policy design. Because let's not forget the value of science and evidence for decision making in policy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Karina. I realized I made a mistake in state defense. This was definitely challenge. And our final provocation of the statement, if creatives should run our cities. I think we have a lot to think about now, but before I ask our audience questions, are there any questions among our speakers that you would like to challenge again or ask questions of our fellow speakers?
Yeah, perhaps to kickstart a conversation, and I'm quite curious about FabLab because you mentioned about it's all about the process. So it's not about the creativity, about, for example, designing a furniture. It's about the process of producing it and really thinking about how they can scale up the projects, right? So in that way, it's not really just about creativity should really dominate the city. It's about the process, and everything should be really equally important. So I'd also love to hear your views in terms of are you still supporting the statement that creatives should run the city, or maybe you're actually joining our side?
Okay, I'll take this one for now, and I might turn it over. So FabLab is an enabler for engineers, for industrial designers, for artists to relate to each other. It's like a synergy. The big thing that you see out of FabLabs is this interaction, cross-pollination of different people. So what you end up with is interesting projects. For example, with our FabLab, it's about retraining people for digital skill sets, but we also have people that are programmers. And someone that's, modeling something might not be a programmer. So you have that cross-pollination. So creativity isn't just the process, it's the cross-pollination between different skill sets. Tying those skill sets together in a unique way is what makes it creative. It makes that more useful. And for example, you talked about policy and stuff like that. There are creative ways to create your policy. It doesn't have to be cut and dry. For example, an engineer and an architect, they're different roles, but they have to work together to get something decent to come out of it, or it will be a very boring building. So there's that sort of take on it. It's a give and take relationship. So it's how you define creativity is the main part of this question, is what is a creative person? Well, anyone has the potential to be creative. It's how you apply yourself in creating interesting things. So I don't know if you want to add to that or not.
If I would like to add that science and engineering are creative activities too. They can be, I know maybe it sounds kind of boring and repetitive, but there's a lot of creativity within those activities. And Fab Labs are about prototyping. So the ideas should start small and we make mistakes when we are starting, and we are always growing and improving. I think that's about the process that Hilary was talking about.
Thank you. Any more questions, challenges? Yeah, Grace.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. At this point, I'm not really sure we're saying different things since we're all talking about symbiosis and synergy, and it's almost like the human body, right? A city. And speaking of human bodies, I think some of the cities, some of the bodies are actually sick or struggling. So, for example, yes, I'm joining from Vancouver, where I've been for 5 months, but I'm born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, with all the connotation that comes with that, with the explosion, with the political unrest, with the economic hardships for everyone. So that question will have a different dimension. Can creatives run a city like Beirut? Should they run a city like Beirut, for example? In opposition to, not in opposition, but in comparison to other cities like whether it's Coventry or Vancouver, where the priorities maybe are still urgent, but a little bit more established. Whether in Beirut it's more urgent and less established with a lack of vision. I think it's probably a debate for another day. It's just like what's on my mind, and I wanted to share it because the question will depend from one city to another, and it will also depend with the level of urgency and the level of democracy as well. So just something to mention. And I really enjoyed this, hearing everyone.
Great, thank you so much, Grace. Any final thoughts from you? Okay, I think it was something to reflect on, definitely what we could hear today. So now I turn to our audience, both first in the room and then also I think we keep an eye on online questions as well, I believe. So anyone raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah, I can see gentleman in the back.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this discussion and debate that you've just had. So my name is Demi. I'm Demi Joseph. I'm a poet, artist, architectural technology student. So I'm quite interested in how creativity can play a part in social progress and how we can shift societies for the better. So when I'm listening to everyone right now, I'm looking at it from a perspective of why not now? Why don't we start now? And not to say we haven't already started, because the fact that we're already here means that we already have started and life has actually led to now. But what's next? How can we now start to collaborate, work with each other and facilitate the next steps? Because essentially our decisions will determine destiny. So what I've come to understand is that we have to ensure that society can still run and that things like anarchy can't happen and so forth. But how do we now merge and create a blend where it's like we bring those ideas to life which, quote unquote, the current politicians aren't doing, or the things that we complain about? How can we now actually get to those rooms or those tables and actually bring these ideas into play? Can we build these hubs, these homes, these schools, these improved schools? There's this theory about the marginal gain. Improving everything by 1% can have an exponential difference. So I think my question is, what do we do next? And how can everybody help each other? Because someone like me, I'm always collaborating, from art, music, fashion, film, all the way now to healthcare, welfare, rehabilitation, and so forth. And to reiterate, what do we do next? I think that's the question. And how do we do it? Because even though we might want to do something and we might have the greatest of intentions, sometimes it might not work. Sometimes you might want to do something for someone and they don't even want it. So how do we kind of find that middle ground in different cities, different nations, different villages, different countries, different continents, so that we can do it in a way where we alleviate global poverty, we facilitate generational wealth, and we improve holistic health? Because these seem to be a lot of the components that we're addressing, even if we don't say it. So the experience of life and the quality of life. But just to wrap it up, I would say, what's next and what are your solutions? I'd like to hear maybe just some thoughts. And the reason why I'm saying it like this is because, you know, like if you go to a riot, I'll use myself as an example. I'm African. If I go to a Black Lives Matter riot, I don't want to riot, go home, and that's the end of it. I want to, let's say, riot, speak to who can provide solutions, change, and paradigm shift things. How can it be done? And sometimes it's not about being laxy-daisy about it like someone else will do it. It's how can I do it and how can we do it? So yeah, just to reiterate my question again, what's next and what should we do?
That was a very comprehensive question. But yeah, we're following UNFCCC processes, so we're good with long interventions. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. And just a few thoughts off of my head, of course, something that we as YOUNGO have always been demanding countries to do that, demanding multilateral processes to ensure that is, of course, first to ensure that youth are in the room, and of course to be included in the process, in the policy-making processes, and also to the implementation, really from being supported in furthering support on education and more projects for them, and to, of course, include them in the implementation projects, help them to scale up their innovative projects, and which is something that we've always been doing. And of course, we know that from a city's perspective, from an urban perspective, that we know that many UK legislators are talking to their constituents on Fridays, and especially the younger generation. So I think this is also a great opportunity for citizens and also for people in the cities to really inform their legislators and people running the city what they really demand and what they really want to see. And I think this really honest and effective communication is definitely needed. And yes, anything else anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I don't know if it perfectly answers your question, but there's this 20th century Austrian artist called Hundertwasser who posits that the lines of architecture in the city are something that kills creativity. And I think that's a parallel maybe you can do with like our social organizations are very hierarchical, and maybe to some extent that kills some creativity, and perhaps inclusion is the answer to that. But I definitely think, and if you draw the parallel with the cities, you know, a lot of the big cultural products that have come from cities in the last 3-4 decades, if you talk about rap, if you talk about DJ sets, will have origins in the streets, will have origins in spaces that are unallocated. So there's some degree to like anarchy, or some level of anarchy and lack of just association of a space with an order that creates the creativity or allows it. And the question is, how can we replicate, look at that, gain from people who've experienced these spaces and replicate it in our social and political institutions in order to create new things, actually answer the problems of tomorrow. Not sure if that answers, but yeah.
Build on that. You mentioned what are the next steps, and the things that I see the most from, you know, from my own work perspective and from a FabLab perspective is this idea of siloed designs, that an engineer is an engineer, an architect is an architect, a policymaker is a policymaker. Well, when you start out at school, you get to play with everything, and then as you grow up, these skill sets get sort of tied. You get pulled to a direction. Well, why do you have to be pulled to that direction? Why can't you try out everything? And that goes back to FabLab's core root. If you don't have a skill and you want to learn that skill, find someone that you can connect to learn that skill. Broaden your horizons. And I think that idea of teaching early on in your education that you don't have to be in one direction. You can have 4 or 5 directions. One might be a hobby one day and a job the next. I think that way of thinking is an important aspect to creating creative cities and creating creative people. So hopefully that answers a little bit.
I just wanted to kind of echo what was said just now. I think to me, the next steps are really to try to emphasize the need for a policy, creativity, nexus dialogue, because right now, a lot of times we tend to see them as 2 separate kind of modes of action, whereas the reality is that both sides can gain so much more by being merged into one. And I think from a climate change point of view, this is very interesting, because while we see, you know, negotiations at COP26, for example, happening, and, you know, like climate negotiators kind of talking about which phrase to use, or, you know, arguing over these things, we also have NGOs and civil society kind of around the negotiations actually using art and creative means to influence climate negotiations. So this might not be in a traditional declaration or resolution or these very somewhat dry means or somewhat conventional means of discourse, but they are using, for example, indigenous forms of art to see how they can contribute to climate protests, or other ways, for example, citizen assemblies where people can come together and co-create certain creative solutions that would then be forwarded to legislators and these climate negotiators. So I guess my point, and this is something that I really much believe in, is to really see how we can explore this nexus and push this conversation and push the frontiers of how policy and creativity can be integrated into one another to better influence the outcome that we want. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I believe these answers were also comprehensive. And if I can just add, I think what is really important, and it's continuing problem of like having the dialogue, but also getting things done, and not just like pro forma, as you mentioned. And I believe part of it is really, really active listening to what these creative people or people from different industries have to say and then come to collaboration and actual results. That would be my add-on if I can add something as someone who is studying cultural policy. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. I think it's a really valuable discussion and quite an engaging topic. However, my question is directed specifically to Karina. Karina, who's from Mexico, I suppose. Hi. So my question to you is that you straight up made the statement that no creative people or creative individuals cannot have a say into, you know, what kind of plans that an architecture can come up with. So I come from India. My background is from the real estate media. Now, having a shared common interest here, but what I want to ask you is that given that the times have changed, given the fact that now we have COVID, we've had serious climate change, this has impacted really very much with the kind of media consumption or the kind of infrastructure development over the globe. For example, the fact that everything is changed to a more personalized space. In Mumbai, we have where all the cinemas and everything was shut. Now we have something known as a drive-through, which is very much there in US and other Western countries, but they are coming in a more, very area-specific, more district, or a more set slot-wise sort of a thing. So don't you see this as a shift of creativity coming into with infrastructure? I don't know if you're exactly getting my point, but don't you feel that creativity and the architecture, the modern architecture that is there prevalent, don't you think this can be a shift, or this is a time that we need to come together, which can make it possible?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I'm not sure if I didn't make myself clear, but I don't think that that creatives should not have a say in the policy process. Absolutely, it's the opposite. I think they should be part of it and one of the many voices that should be heard and empowered. For the example that you gave, definitely top-down solutions are not getting us anywhere at the moment, and I think that's where the real potential of creativity lies, wherein we can work with communities and inform policy in a different way from more bottom-up approaches, and what we have been mentioning before, some other people in the panel, more synergistic approaches and more holistic approaches. So yeah, definitely creators should have a say, should have a place where those voices can be heard. And what I'm mostly argumenting for here is the fact that their policy should provide these mechanisms and should provide these ways of integrating these skill sets, these mindsets, whether it's through design thinking or participatory processes. There are many methods nowadays that that these can be integrated, and of course that is the value that social entrepreneurs and other kinds of established creatives or young creators can contribute. And those are the things that need to be leveraged, that need to be more visible, so they can be incorporated in a more holistic way when we're talking about policy. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Karina. Do we have any more final questions? Maybe also, do we have any online questions or not? Okay, I can see Hansi.
Hi. Okay. I have an opinion / question. So a lot of this conversation have been circulating about integration, incorporation. Therefore, these words kind of suggest there's a difference between what should be the mainstream and what should be marginal. And when we talk about the mainstream, it is often words, it is often declarations, while the marginal, which seems to be somewhat synonymous with pushing of creativity, then therefore becomes the job of the artist. So my question is a little bit radical, but why not we mainstream these forms of creative expression such that it will not be something marginal, need to be incorporated into policy frameworks, but be the very policy framework that we become conventionally accustomed to. So why not, essentially? That's a question. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, I think definitely interesting, and I think it is something that should be mainstreamed, and just like how we've been advocating for youth to be mainstreamed in all the policy and implementation work, that of course it would be very interesting to ensure, for example, even the legislators have a creative mindset, which is of course, really important for the future of our cities. And I think it would be very important for them to really consider the voice of the creatives and the artists, and really the ones, for example, designing the processes and also having creative mindsets, and to ensure that they have effective communication, and then to ensure that those policy framework and the future structure of our cities will be based on a creative basis.
Anyone else wants to add some? Oh, Grace, yes.
Hi, so this has been on my mind since the first question that was asked from the audience, and it's also hopefully an answer to this question. I think sometimes it's not always the big picture. It's something super small, super micro, like what's next, but what's next for me as a practitioner. On a personal level, this has been on my mind. Do I still want to be an architect? Do I still want to be an educator? Do I want a government job? And I'm trying to do the three of them. I'm applying to the three kind of jobs. And I think it's an interesting exercise, because if we can place ourselves as someone creative by education and training, or even as someone with a creative mind, no matter what the career is, then we can maybe find a place where we feel like a good fit for the puzzle, and do something a little bit, even at a small level, at very incremental, daily, progressive, accumulation level, some changes will be made. And speaking of mainstream, if I did understand the question correctly, when I came out of the university, the only jobs that I could apply to that were around me were architecture jobs, and end of story. Architecture training to become an architect. Right now, when 12, 13 years later, when I look at what's possible around me, it could be that my profile has changed, or simply the way we operate in cities changed. But I find more interesting jobs such as cultural planning, and such as inclusion specialist, or architect with focus on impact. All of these titles, some of them, when you read the description, they are true and honest with the title. Some of them are not always the case. So I wanted to share this perspective where it's not always the big picture, and it doesn't always have to be that there's so much to do and you almost feel like you can't do anything. It can be something very small, starting with what you want, almost in a selfish way, but eventually it will become more contributing to the society. At least this is where I am right now. And I hope that answers the first and third question.
Thank you, Grace. I really sympathize on this point with you because I'm also not decisive about my career and juggling more things. Yes? Yes, please.
Add to that a little bit, and I can use actually the city culture as an example, and the fact that when some of the stuff was originally planned, they went out and they reached out to creative organizations and they helped do some of the program and tie things in. So these integrations are happening. They might be happening at a local level, but as it grows and more things happen, you'll see them be adopted onto a larger level. Hopefully that answers that question a little bit more.
Yeah, that gives us more optimism. Thank you for adding that point, because I think that's what we all need to continue that. All right, so we had a lot of thoughts going on here and really interesting debate and up to date. So now I believe it's time to vote. And just to remind you, for those who are remote online, there is a mirror board, so you should get the link to the YouTube live chat and just press on agree or disagree. And for those who are in the audience, I think we have counters here to help me and count who of you agree and disagree. So if we are ready, can I start? Yeah. All right, so raise your hand if you agree with the statement of our debate, which is if creatives should run our cities. Okay. So, yes, have you counted? Because I haven't really. Okay, so now the ones who are against. You can raise your hand twice. Okay. And what was the number before? Okay. And do we have the results online? Is anyone? Directly from Cara. What is it? I think we know what Cara wrote for. Okay, I think it's clear now. I believe that we kind of agree that creatives should run the city. I say we because I consider myself as one, so we should run the cities. But I think kind of no matter what the result of our kind of thoughts, well, the result of our thoughts is important, but the debate was really interesting and provoking, or maybe also ideas, but next steps for each of one of us. What I think what we kind of take out of the debate, in my opinion, is that it can start from us, so each one of you, your kind of next step. So I would embrace Grace's comment on that. It's about global picture, and we are having international event today, which is very important, and making these connections. But I think it always starts from you and from the local level and community, and then it grows. So that is probably really important in how our future is going to look like in where we live, and that is important. And also, we have to always look at who is making the decisions and how I can get involved in that. So this is what we've discussed. Thank you so much to the speakers for your contribution. Thank you so much for interesting questions. There are a lot of questions. And before you Before we finish the debate, I just want to remind you that this is not the end of the event. We'll have 5-minute break, and after that, we are going to have performances and showcase, because what would be the full day of talking about creativity if we don't show you some creative work, amazing creative work. So this is what up next. Thank you also for inviting me to this debate, and have a lovely evening with us. See you in 5 minutes. Thank you, guys.
day is all about showcasing the creativity that we've all been talking about all day. And our first performer of the day is no other than Coventry's John Bernard. We heard John share his career and creative journey with us earlier today, but now it's time to hear what it's all about. So come on the stage, John.
All right, then, how we doing? Nah, that's a bit weird. Wait a minute. We've had the panel talks, we've been relaxed. How we doing? Yeah, we're going to start this side. I'm going to ask you guys how we doing. Do you know what? It's a bit unfair because there's not many people on this side. I just looked. All right, this side we're going to test it, yeah? So if I'm going to ask you guys, are you having a good time so far? And I need you guys to respond, yes, John, we are. Are we having a good time so far? Are we having a good time so far? Okay, cool. I appreciate that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to perform 2 songs. Normally I do poetry, but today I'm just going to do 2 songs. One of the songs is my new release called British Bake Off, and the other one hasn't yet been released. It's called Vacation. The first song I'm going to do, Vacation, is basically about vacation, right? Who knows what vacation means? She's like, duh. So vacation, do you know what it is? I wrote this song when I think it was the second lockdown. How many lockdowns have there been so far? Like 3, 4? 3. I think it was the second lockdown. And it was just thinking about, going away and with Bay. And we couldn't, and this song kind of came from that and the whole process of it. Adrian, when you're ready. And guys, another thing, I want you guys to stand up for me as well. I want you guys to be in the mood, you know what I mean? So even if it means little stretches, little movements, Demi's got it there, robotics, make yourself free, feel free. Could you turn up my mic a bit up as well, please? And the track up as well, please. You got a path, I got a path too. You got me seeing you beside me like I'm part you. Partly cry for partying from this party, then them DJs you got a pass move. But that's only if you want to. Like, don't believe in pain, but you told me that you rap too cool. Then I could pick you up, have a carpool cruising. Bring me through the city playing pass loop. She said you love God and you got tats too. I can't lie, I'm not a baller or a scammer. I'm the same on the gram and off camera. But real talk, I get paid for my words. And I wouldn't trade this commerce. The conversation got me like, give it all. Cause you already know what you were. Trench, baby, I rose from the dirt. Coventry, left and right, let's go, left and right. She look at me like she seen money. Yes, I'm liking that, that's it. Alright, now we're gonna speed up a bit, left and right, yeah? Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go. And then a left, a right, a left, a right, a left, a right. Oh, you guys are too good, man. Can you turn up my mic a tiny bit? Yeah. Like, you miss 100% of shots you don't take. And I'm glad that I worked on my aim. No game, just a genuine brother. My bro, so she was a 10, said I swear you won't get her. But what's a 10 to a gentleman with high hopes? Girl, your presence is a tightrope. Got my mind moving on flight mode. But all I see is you and I don't mind, no. You say you know me from my poems, can you recite any? I'm not much of a drinker, but I like Henny. You are cut above, I'm not like many. That's a double one, moving twice from me. I can't lie, man, my bros are still on runners. No question, nothing asked, brother, husher. But real talk, I'm trying to stick to the words. Come with you, let's go. And I see what you were. Hands up. She look at me like she seen money. Hey, I like that. To that, baby. The back, I see you guys. Now the guys in blue, let's go. Left, a right, a left, a right, a left, a right. Yeah. Yes, don't object. Style up and prep. All right, this time I want to see you guys dance. Go, best dance. Go. I see you in the denim. That's what I'm talking about, Rose. That's what I'm talking about. Best dance. You show the whole world. She look at me like she seen money. Like my daddy was. Told her, baby, I ain't a nobody. Yeah, you're messing with her, let's go. And then a left, a right, a left, a right, a left, a right. Vacation wheel. Don't object. Style up and prep. All right, Coventry. Can I get a yeah? A yeah? Can I get a yeah? That's what I'm talking about. I'm loving this vibe, man. Damn. You guys are great. You guys are great. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Now, this next song I'm going to do is my recent release called British Bake Off. Who watches the British Bake Off here? You do? Yes. Yes. There you go. Now, I love this song because, again, it's fun, but most important of all, it's about gratitude and just enjoying yourself. You know them songs you put on when you're about to bake? Do you bake? Because you put your hand up when you want to bake. Anybody bakes? Yeah? Yeah? What songs do you listen to when you bake? Oh, you don't? Just bake in silence. Fair play. Well, next time you're doing some baking, you can put British Bake Off on. But before we put this song on, I need you guys to help me with a chorus because it's one of those songs where I need help with a chorus. And if you guys mess it up, I'll mess up as well. So the chorus is really, really simple. And there's a part I want you guys to come in. So this is the chorus anyways. It goes like, thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the British Bake Off. So that's the part I want you guys to come in, the British Bake Off part. So thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the... But you got to say it with chest. You know what I mean? You got to say it with a bit of chest. All right. Thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the... I love that. I love that. Adrian, ready? Let's go. Yeah. Hey, I'm loving that move. Come on, let's go. Like, you know the vibe, we've been grinding to the dirt. Tommy, my Achilles, I've just splurged on the murk. Dreams as a youngin' to hear a murk skirt. New plate, any shift came like. These days, I'm seeing the blessings that came from the curse. Wasn't supposed to be, I can't explain what's occurred. The strangest occurrence, stayed in my lane, didn't wave with the current. Coventry ready, let's go. Like, thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the British Bake Off. They say money make them celebrate, yeah. But being broke will expose your haters. If God go and give us paper, straight to the ends, may the money take us. Keep the youth from the box, reshape us. Invest in land at least 3 acres. Tell my missus I don't need no 20 bags. Home is where the heart is, I'm just trying to make it back. Bring a couple plaques like honey, look at that. Product to the trap, found freedom in the raps. Took a turn for the, I know, sky blue flow. Make you move so smoothly like you got on loose clothes. No loopholes, just a group call and got the move, yeah. You know we're finna get green, let's go again. Thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the British Bake Off. They say money make us celebrate, yeah. But being broke will expose your haters. If God go and give us paper, straight to the ends, may the money take us. Keep the youth from the box, reshape us. Invest in land at least 3 acres. Like truth is, no means nothing, gotta stick to the plan, take risks with a fam. For how we gon' get rich with that, those risks, I be damn. Let them understand where we stood, just to overstand. From older more to stony stance. New age goal, keep my door away from OnlyFans. Slowly expand the brand, Russell Brand hustle. Last time, let's go, Coventry, make some noise. Now thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. It's the British Bake Off. They say money make us celebrate, yeah. But being broke will expose your haters. If God go and give us paper, straight to the ends, may the money take us. Keep the youth from the box, reshape us. Invest in land at least 3 acres. Like, thanks every day we wake up, get our cake up. They say money make them celebrate, yeah. But being broke will expose your haters. And if God go and give us paper, straight to the ends, may the money take us. Keep the youths from the box, reshape us. Invest in land at least 3 acres. Coventry, you've been amazing. I've been John Bernard. Thank you so much for having me.
The performance segment of this evening. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. That was so much fun. Thank you, John. So next up, we've got Mike Khakame. Mike is an animator and designer based in Nairobi who uses his creative skills to make stories more memorable and to highlight social issues and injustices that many experience day in and day out. Mike is also part of the Coventry City of Culture Youthful Cities programme, working in collaboration with other creatives from Coventry and Nairobi to create new immersive stories, which will be published and showcased at the Global Youth Series event on the 28th of April, which will be the next and final event. Now, though, Mike is going to introduce some of his personal illustration and animation work. Hello, Mike. Do tell us more.
Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is Mike Khakame, as you've been told. Let me share my screen a little bit. Good. Right. My name is Mike Khakame, as I said, and I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm an illustrator, designer, and developer as well. That's just a side gig, but mostly I'm a creative. And I love telling these stories, mostly my stories, and makes more of these stories memorable and be impactful also to the society at large. So basically, I think creativity is everything and is my life, has always been. So without further ado, I would just like to start from here. Like I said, I'm an illustrator and I sell this artwork most of the time, and this is what I do and I freaking love it. So basically, this is a piece that I did, and COVID has actually sparked a lot of creativity in me, most of it, because I actually got the chance to take a look back and find myself. You know, I was still struggling in the creative space, but I actually found myself during COVID. So it was a good thing and a bad thing. So basically, this is a piece that I did, and it was based off what we were going through in 2020. The whole world was actually at a standstill. There was some rumors of war somewhere. There was a lot of unrest. But in the end of the day, I thought inner peace was the most important part of it. So it's actually pun intended. This is an inner peace that I created. I use 3D softwares to do these illustrations. And I actually really love telling these stories. Sometimes they may be boring, sometimes may be untold stories, but it is something I really like doing. So this is a story that of what the whole world was coming to in 2020, and peace, as always, has to be the most important thing in anyone's life. So this is just a glimpse of what I do. Most of the things, I think you can check me out on social media, probably leave links somewhere. This is also a second illustration I did from the Musically. I did a series last year called the Musically Speaking Collection. And it's basically telling stories of musicians, what they are like, you know. Most of the time we see them, these cool dudes, we see this, just like John is actually a really decent musician. I freaking love him, and I'll actually subscribe to him. So basically, I was just trying to tell stories of musicians on stage, trying to understand their characters. You know, as I fancy myself to be a small developing musician, a pianist at that, I enjoy hanging out with those people, and I try to understand their characteristics. So based on that interaction, I came up with this series talking about musicians, how they actually are in person, and it's a pretty interesting story when you go and look at it, mostly from the websites that are linked below. So moving on to the next illustration. This was just, I actually just accidentally walked into this because, again, like I said, most of the things that I actually got a grip of in terms of illustration was basically from COVID and my observation most of the time. And that's the time that media peaked, and online interactions was at an all-time high, because most of the meetings like this one, just the one that we are right now in, I would really love to be part of you and actually just experience life from that side. So basically, this was it was based on what I have experienced and the observation that I made. And I actually came to a conclusion that we probably are addicted to socials. And that's why interactions in the first quarter of 2020 was a bit hard. People could not really socialize because in person, trying to understand who they are as a person. So we are really more glued into tech, and I really think it is something to watch, because by doing that, we actually miss experience in life. We fade away and lose ourselves in this. So this is just a polite reminder and a constant a sign that we really need to come back to social interactions, like just like what is happening over there in the Coventry. So for more of what I do in terms of illustrations and animations, you can probably check me out at my Khakame in Instagram and the below links. So in terms of animation, I just decided to present one of these. This was an animation that I'm currently finalizing on. It is basically about a story of a young kid. This young kid may or may not be me, but probably me. It is probably. So basically, this is the life that most of us from Kenya and basically the African region constantly face, because we may end up really wanting having to do art and to do less officey kind of works. But in the end of the day, our parents think, you really need to go to school, you need to stick to the norms, you cannot find money out there. So by putting that kind of mindset in a young person, in a young kid, it actually just kills him or her. So I decided to do a story which was, I actually resonate with this, because there were some periods in my life you really could not venture into art, and that is actually why we are here. And should creatives around the world, I still think we should. So this is a story that I'll show you this trailer, and yeah, just get a feel of what will happen. So this, don't want to spoil much about it, but you could just watch the trailer. I think it's ready, and yeah, I guess, is it okay if you share the actual video, the trailer? Cool. So it is just short and sweet, just to keep you glued. And I think that's what I have been able to learn and to enjoy about the creative side, is because I get to tell my side of stories. I get to interact with a lot of stories. And one thing I really like, and one thing I really appreciate for the program, is I'm getting to write my own stories. So yeah, so basically, I think we'll probably interact more during the presentation. I've seen Demi there. Shout out to Demi. We are in the same program as Digital Storytelling Labs, and I'm pretty excited, obviously, of what we'll showcase on that day. So thank you so much. And yeah, if you have any questions, please shoot. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. That was very enjoyable and fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us. Next up, we've got performances from 5 young poets and spoken word artists. Together, they were a part of the Youthful Cities program Poetry Exchange with young writers from Beirut. Their work from this exchange is being performed tomorrow at the Verve Poetry Festival at the Birmingham Hippodrome. So if you haven't got any plans tomorrow, do check it out. Today, though, they are going to share some of their personal work. We're kicking off with the wonderful Chrissy Okori. Chrissy is a writer, poet, and freelancer working across the arts, media, and journalism. She began performing poetry as a student at Coventry University and has not looked back since. Beyond poetry, Chrissy is exploring the forms of script writing and personal essays.
Yeah, so, sorry, the joys of being 5'2", because everyone that comes before you is tall, and I feel like tiny. But, they say good things come in small sizes, so it's good. So, like they said, I'm a poet, and I've been performing poetry since I was 19, but I've been active in the arts in Coventry for the past 4 years, and it's been an amazing experience. So most of my poetry is activism and social impact, but recently it kind of took a toll on me, so I'm kind of like moving away from that and looking at storytelling through my heritage in Africa, and also just creating other work that doesn't have to be about my trauma as a woman of color. So most of these poems that I'm reading to you are actually the poems that I wrote when I was doing activism poems. So there's 2 that I'm going to read. One actually is just about what poetry means to me, and then the other one is me looking at the society that we live in. So this one is called Poetry Is. Poetry is the air that I breathe on a windy morning. The Bonnie to my Clyde. Poetry is the feeling you get as a child on Christmas Day. It's the medicine that cures my broken heart that has been smashed into pieces by the wicked and sinful world. Poetry is my escape. It takes me places only I can move around in. Poetry helps me organize my thoughts into a safety cabinet, locking it away from the world. Poetry brings me peace and tranquility. It is the weapon I use to fight this Babylon society. Allows me to fight the fight, to walk the walk, to talk the talk and walk the walk. Poetry has seen me through my darkest and grimiest days. Poetry is my solitary. And then the next one I'm going to read is called From a Society. So it goes like this. I'm from a society that never sleeps. I'm from a generation where social media determines where social media determines who we, sorry, I have to start again, sorry. I'm from a society that never sleeps. I'm from a generation where social media determines how we sleep, who we date, and how we think. And we think that materialistic things make us complete while we compete to stay in the limelight. With our eyes not as bright, filled with tears, but we can no longer cry as we follow trends blindly. Refusing to tap out of this virtual world built to distract us from the things that really matter. I'm from a society that molds you, that constructs us to think and behave like robots so they can complete their mission to erase your existence, while we solely exist to help them stay rich while we stay swimming in depths. Passing this cycle of poverty to our kids, but when we are no longer moving to their beat, we become dirty computers. Our hard drives are cleaned out, casted out, and called rebels and rule breakers. But what kind of rules only benefit the money makers? Their pockets are fatter while ours are thinner, and we become property of Her Majesty the Queen, and we can no longer see our identity, stripped and hanged in the four walls of their museums. I'm from a society that every institution was built to silence you. Your opinions and feelings don't matter. I'm from a society that only discusses money matters. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chrissy. That was very powerful. Next up, we have the brilliant Calvin Ompong. Calvin Ademeko Ampong is a second-year psychology student at Coventry University. Calvin was born in Ghana and moved to the UK around the age of 13. His main hobbies include writing, photography, illustration, and reading. His initial engagement with writing stemmed from a drive to make something for Black History Month in 2018. More recently, Calvin has used writing and photography as a personal release and a form of escape. Calvin.
Thank you for that introduction. As you know, I'm Calvin Ampong. I've been writing poetry as of, I think, late 2018/2019. And last year, September, was the first time I ever actually performed any sort of actual poetry piece. Today, I have two poems here for you guys. The first one is something I did as part of a workshop during the process with the Beirut team. And I just thought I'd share it. It's called Penmanship, and it kind of encapsulates what it means to be a writer for me. A writer's pen is the life and lung through which they breathe. Like thunder and lightning, it strikes the page with all the thoughts and the feels. My pen is the car with which I cross this rugged terrain, knowing all will be done to my will, no matter the weather, be it rain or shine. My ink called me by name, engraved me in opaque crystal while I wandered the icy terrain, hoping the silent, slippery slopes held the answers to my questions. Pages hold the captions of the memories that rages through my chemical lines, crumple, fold, tear, read and write my purpose into lives. Words. See, my words are curved in between your curves and they won't release until I feast on your flesh. So tasteful you are, I begin to fall into poetry. Words that hold validity. Thank you. That was penmanship. And that was my first piece. And like I said, it was developed as part of this workshop with Miss Yankee back during the time where we were drafting the actual main piece for Coventry City of Culture. The second piece is called Intricacies. There's not much to say about this piece. I think you can kind of get an idea of what it is from what I say, but it is inspired by the author of words in my life. So yeah. God is love. God is consistency, a leitmotif in the Bible we tend not to see. His love transcends time in all measures, not just one day of each 365, but infinitely. It says, I made you, and I gave you all the love that I had in me. I sent my only begotten son to die for your sins and to make them undone, and my spirit to reside in you forever, to fill your heart with what makes mine tender. And if you didn't know it yet, you know it now. You're a universe inside, a vessel for nirvana that God poured himself inside. I couldn't dismiss God if I tried. When you were living, breathing proof, how could I not believe in God when I see his light in you? Book 1 to 66, his love came in 3, buoyantly translated through existence as potent as the braille skin of trees, inscribing the magnificence of creation into its skeletal mold. Beneath the wrath of the cosmos, a sheathed palace of sweet sap, the multicellular array of love, union, and reign, cursive, like the blood coursing through my veins. Do you ever think about God, whether you believe in him or not? If our feeble minds could only entwine the creating of worlds with such intricate design, the one who willed the suns to burn in space and the night's moon to borrow light from the days, the river of ever-living water that traversed into streams of stars, ejecting from the galaxies whirlpools that read the gift of life like memoirs. A harmoniously ordered formation of our planet, its stones the source of sapphires, giving it cycles of self-sufficiency, providing everything that it requires. The rods and the cones and the cranial lobes, the intimacy of hips, the heart and the lips, the cord of my back with all the muscular dips, a charted terrain of my earthly presence, the confluence of all things, matter and anti, tailoring it to meet every need that we demand, and still his love we misunderstand. The breath that he gifted us, a greater than lifetime warranty, he expressed life through intimacy. I can't begin to imagine anyone understanding intricacies more thoroughly. God, you are holy. Thank you.
Calvin. That was amazing. Next up, we have Theotima Iwanu. Theo is a Manchester-based theatre maker, poet, and visual artist who believes that artistic creation is fundamentally a process of collaboration and exchange. Theo.
Hi everyone, and thanks for the introduction. I'm really glad to be back here. This is a place where I performed before and where I emceed, so it's kind of close to, feels like home. So I'm going to talk a bit about myself as well and about my work. I usually like to write poems about moments that kind of make me feel some kind of way. And I keep those separate from my theatre work, which tends to be a bit more political, activist, etc. So this first poem is called Adam and Eve. I don't usually write poems of biblical nature, but I saw this picture that was called Adam and Eve, and it kind of made me think about the gender relations between this, well, Adam and Eve. So here it goes. She strokes the world. He grabs her arm. She moves her fingers one by one. He travels on towards her cheek, his clutch, her grip, a poor array of things. For one, the world, but at what cost? The rest is what this kinship brought. Thank you. And the next poem that I'm going to read is of a completely different nature. I don't think there's much of an introduction that I can do to it, but it's called Antonio Machado, which is a Spanish poet and also a metro stop at Madrid, which is where I was inspired to write this poem. I climbed the steps, unsure of where they're leading. A wall, 2 hops, and then the place where you were living. You're sat, a little hunched across the street. Eternal smoke from your lips, a sign that you are breathing. A glance, 2 beats, a still catatonia. This image commands only what's real. I still can't tell where you unloved or lacking all that's real. Despite all that, your smoke dissolves again in pure melancholia until I move. A glance, 2 hops, and we were gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. That was amazing. Joining us online actually today, because she was unfortunately not able to make it in today, is Alice. Alice is a writer from Coventry. She mainly writes poetry, but is also working on the start of a YA novel. Alice's drive to write is inspired by her desire to tell the stories of real people. Alice.
Hi, I've been introduced, I write poetry. I also write a few short stories. I'm working on the YA novel, but anyone that writes will know that's going slowly. I'm going to read 2 poems for you. One of them is a bit more typical of my usual style than previously. And this first one is called Step. Take a step outside of your body and examine it. Examine your height, your weight, your arms, your legs, your feet, your ankles, your hair, your hands, your grace, your slender, how your face rests. Do not judge. Judgment leads to bias, disappointment, and a multitude of other emotions that belong in lesser beings. Instead, study, examine, take note of your genus, your species, and everything there is to know. Be a scientist, find the facts, take them down and write them into charts. Get close, get closer, and again and again. Be uncomfortable and watch that bloom over your face. Watch the ripples shudder through your body. Be uncomfortable, then step back and examine again how you have changed. Examine your height, your weight, your arms, your legs, your feet, your ankles, your hair, your grace, your slender, how your face rests, your genus, your species, everything there is to know, and then go back inside. And the second one, which is about a fast food chain, which for obvious reasons I'm not about to name, but I'm sure you can work it out by the end. The endless sea of multicolored joy now bare. Foam lining waving hello from underneath the grease-stained, salt-covered, dented plastic balls. The aroma, a stale reminder of kids gone by. whose smell wafted off the foam, them and their dinners, which lasted longer than the smell of the fresh food. The bright, white, sunlit space was now stained. The beautiful mural wall lost its attraction when literacy and knowledge of corporate tactics shone brighter than those primary colours. Self-order machines were now a germ's breeding ground, not put there by aliens to play with. Would you like communicable diseases with your fries? I hadn't thought to connect the dots that maybe polished sandstone floors, white leather seats, and sparklingly clean tables didn't quite fit in a fast food restaurant next to Asda. At least the white grainy plastic of the table was still slightly sticky and definitely not sterile. But at least I'm loving it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, for that thought-provoking performance. So, our final member of our Youthful Cities Coventry cohort and our final performance for this afternoon is Lewis Driver, who performs under the name Spoken to Life. Lewis uses spoken word as a platform to share his Christian faith and to discuss real-life issues many people are facing today. He believes in the power of spoken word to bring about change in society. Lewis.
Thank you. Cool. How are we doing, guys? We okay? Cool. So this is actually the first time I'm performing this poem today. This poem, I wrote this at the end of last year. It's called Sticks and Stones. And it's just kind of, I wanted to write a poem that illustrated the damaging effect of words. So yeah, this is that. It's not about me personally, but yeah, just kind of a more generic view of how words can be really damaging, because I feel like that isn't spoken about enough, and sometimes words can take kind of a deep root in people's lives, and it doesn't show up straight away, but it can kind of stay with people. Also, bear with my voice isn't in the best condition, but yeah. Sticks and stones, wait, hang on. I've got to move this mic up, sorry. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words could never hurt me. Let me say that one more time for those of you at the back, in case you haven't heard me. I said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words pierce through me like a jagged blade, puncturing my confidence, sending me into a panic state, flattening my self-esteem, causing my walls of well-being to crumble into a pile of rubble. I'm a pitiful state. Gossip and slander claw at me like a rat on the floorboards, causing my joy to look war-torn. My mind, a cage full of bats, erratically flying in all directions with a clear intention to attack. But I was told words couldn't hurt me, yet they stick to me like glue, grip me like an angry mugger, causing me to shudder with terror from the inside. I wish people in this life were more kind. Words are so hurtful. You can't see my scars because all the abuse I've suffered is verbal, but believe me, it packs a punch. Just like an angry football fan after 10 pints and 2 grams of cocaine, so trust me, I know pain. Words, these words never leave my brain. Insults cling to me like a baby gripping his father's finger for the first time, wrapping themselves round me like a boa constrictor, choking me until I become breathless. So when I try to fight back, my fight lacks any real power. It feels like I'm being devoured. They swim in my system like a group of angry piranhas. I never feel safe. These words are beginning to dictate my thoughts. Flaming arrows that never miss the target, hitting the bullseye of my deepest insecurities. My heart's beating at a frantic pace. My mind, a maze of abrasive comments that I can't seem to escape. Each corner I turn, another one screams at me like a jack in the box. Pathetic. The word I would get told when I was upset as a child, I've been carrying that one for a while. It's like a rucksack that keeps getting heavier. I've been the butt end of so many jokes that burn worse than a cigarette. But I don't show its effect. I just laugh along with it. I never react. Because if my so-called friends knew how I was feeling on the inside, then that would only enhance their mockery. They know I'm sensitive, so their ridicule is consecutive. Just man up, it's only banter. Their favorite comment, their tongues, venomous vipers, filling me with a poison called inadequacy that damages me to my very core. Their laughter, a fire alarm that never stops. It rings in my ears even when I reach the silence. Each wave is a destructive tsunami that leaves me defenseless. I feel trampled on. My identity seems to be placed in people's differing opinions of me. I keep bouncing around each one like a pinball, questioning who I am and whether these things are true. I'm imprisoned to presumption, always making the assumption about what others think of me. I haven't found a coping mechanism that works. I just try to deflect everything. But it's like trying to deflect a bullet with my bare hands. I don't know why I've come to accept all these things said about me. For so long I've wondered why they had so much power. But then I remembered that verse from the Bible. Proverbs 18, verse 21. Within the tongue, there is the power to speak life or to speak death. That's why I say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, they hurt. They cut deep. Your tongue has more power than you think. Just like this proverb says, it has the power to speak life or the power to speak death. My question is, which one are you going to do? Are you going to use the tongue that God gave you to gradually destroy someone's sense of value, tear up their sanity until they become a chamber full of self-loathing, desperately hoping that there's a way out but failing to ever believe they'll get free? Or are you going to build up and encourage, show grace instead of show hate, deny yourself the satisfaction of retaliation and consider that one rash word you say in a moment can stay with someone for a lifetime? So just remember the next time you go to give that insult or speak harshly on impulse, the detrimental effects your words could have. So let's start bringing more love and kindness across this earth. And every time you speak, you should consider your listener first. Because I'm pretty sure you'd rather be somebody's breath than somebody's hearse. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Lewis. That was very powerful. I know I've used that word a lot, but I was just like, how am I going to get the energy to come back on the stage? No, honestly, it was amazing. And that brings us to the end of our performances this afternoon. It has been an amazing, amazing event. I actually haven't been to something like this before, even though I'm the host. I've not. And whilst I was going through the entire program, even before I got on the stage today, I was just so excited. I was so excited to hear all the talks and to see all the performances. And it honestly has really exceeded my expectations. And it's just been really interesting because I think, I don't know, the last time I thought about creativity, because I personally don't I haven't really ventured into exploring creativity and how I am a creative person. And one of the key messages here was that creativity is something that all of us possess in one way or another. And I really feel like today has been really thought-provoking for me as well, even though I've been the host, so it's been really good. We've had talks, we've had performances, we had a really thought-provoking debate. And honestly, when I was, even the way I said it actually, I was like, it's time to debate whether creatives should run our cities. And I was so sure that I was going to be like, yes, yeah, they should. And, I'd vote yes. And I was so surprised. I was so surprised that after listening to all the different angles, although it kind of came to the front that actually collaboration is great, and that's why a lot of us didn't like shoot our hands up when we said, you know, yes, creatives should run the cities. I just thought that there were some really, really great points on both sides of that argument, and I just learned a lot from that. So now I'm going to stop sharing about me, and I really want to put it on to you guys. Like, as an audience, I'd love to hear what your key points and what your key takeaways were. We're also going to get up the Miro board, because as I said at the beginning of the event, we have international audiences joining us on YouTube live stream, and so they've also been adding their thoughts and ideas onto the Miro board, so it's really great to see visually what they've been thinking. So I want to put it out to the audience. Are there any key things that stood out to you today? Would anyone like to contribute? Anything surprising that surprised you? The vote for me definitely surprised me. Or anything that inspired you for today?
Hiya. I think for me it was really nice, just obviously being here as well, just talking to different people afterwards as well, and finding those points of connections that we've made based on the conversations we've had. I think that's been really, really fantastic. And then also I think that it's something that you said as well, Priya, and something that's been a theme sort of throughout the day, is that we're not necessarily with like creativity and creative careers or our journey and how we function, we're not really taught to have that at the forefront of anything that we do. It's not generally what's advertised as, you know, that's what you should grow up to be, you should be a creative. It's something that we all have to almost fall into, and this is why stuff like this is so important, because it's starting to encourage these conversations that actually we don't need to fall into it. It's something we can create. It's something that we can facilitate for ourselves now and from the get-go, and we can start calling ourselves creatives if we've created one thing or two things or three things. You know, you can call yourself a writer if you've written, you know, you don't need to have published something to be a writer. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more, and what I'm hearing about today as well, is the importance of that, the importance of owning that, the importance of backing yourself, and the importance of sharing what you do, because you can be a creative and create for yourself, and of course that's wonderful, but also if you want to make a career out of it and no one knows what you do, then you're not going to be able to get to that stage. So shout about yourselves, and I think John said it's all like back yourself, like you're the one that needs to back yourself, you're the one that needs to put yourself forward. So I think that's been my key sort of takeaways from today.
Thank you so much, Tam, for sharing. Yeah, that really resonated with me. Even with what Priya Krishnamurthy was saying in the second talk, as someone from a South Asian background as well, like it really resonated with me about the community, about family, about close friends, kind of not looking at creative careers as something that's going to earn you any money or is going to be respectful or like just something that you can actually do. So yeah, it was really nice to hear her journey, but thank you so much. That was really great. Anyone else got any shares? No? Oh, okay. Oh yeah, sure.
I think I will give final thought. When I was invited to do the debate, I didn't even know what to expect, to be honest. Since I started my studies at Warwick, I haven't spent much time in here and in Coventry, so I'm happy that I could be here and I could meet people who also study here and live here. And what was most powerful for me was that there is such a big, great community of creative people and artists and managers and everyone who is involved, and even researchers and students. And I think what we create together and when we inspire each other, that is what keeps us going, because it was really, really hard for me these last 2 years, especially when I was kind of in my room trying to do research about culture, trying to keep positive that I will be able to create again. And I had a massive burnout a year ago, and I feel like I'm just like in a video game, pretending my life, and I'm never gonna be able to speak to people again. So I'm really thankful for this and getting emotional. But it's been amazing. I've been on a stage
little bit nervous because I've been on stage talking to people and I have acting background, but I still was nervous because I was talking to people after such a long time, maybe after 3 years. And it's amazing, and that's what makes art and creativity powerful, to make people feel as well. So thank you so much, guys, for being this community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can really resonate with that. I mean, it's been an interesting couple of years, you know, and I also, like, especially before the whole lockdown and things, I did a lot of speaking, and I kind of went into the deep end after lockdown and decided to be a speaker at my own event that I was also organizing everything for. Didn't get any help because I just had an idea of what it was going to be like. And it just didn't go the way I wanted it to go at all, like in terms of speaking. And I'm a speaker coach and a public speaker. And so for that to happen, it was a really like a low point. And this is my second like speaking like opportunity that I've had since then. And yeah, it takes courage to come up here, but it's so great. It's so great that you did that. I couldn't even tell that you were nervous at all when you were up here. And it's amazing that this whole kind of group of people have come together and we've got this amazing event. So thank you so much for sharing. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? Okay, one more. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm only doing this to make the mic runner have to run around everywhere. Sorry about that. I just wanted to reflect on the last session. Sadly, that's the only one I've been able to catch today, but I thought it was brilliant. And even though we saw a range of different topics, I think what was really amazing about them all and what united them all was how close all of those creatives were to their motivation. So we had people who were motivated by politics, religion, personal motivation, and it was all it's very varied in what they said, but they were all very close to their motivation. And I hope that sort of motivation-led thinking came out in what creatives have to give to our city and our country and our world, because I think that's what's often missed out of decision-making is how motivation heavy it is, rather than looking structurally at decisions and things. So I hope there are some people around here that want to go and make decisions and drive our city, because I think that last session was absolutely phenomenal.
Much. Okay, so as we come to the close of our second day of the Global Youth Series, let's look ahead at what's next. The third and final day of the Global Youth Series is taking place on the 28th of April. It's taking place online and at Square One at Coventry University. This program is going to continue to challenge and connect global communities with new work being showcased. Live link-ups bringing us together, and more opportunities to meet young people from all around the world. Please continue to share your ideas and reflections on our Miro board. And if you're here in Coventry, please keep the conversations going here at Fargo Village. And finally, I want to just say some thank yous. First up, let's thank all of our speakers, performers, and contributors today. Let's also thank the Global Youth Series Youth Steering Group, Chrissy Okari, Jade Dumani, Carol Pierre, Orphe Kashala, David Boana, and Demi Joseph. Joanna Morley, who has been supporting our online engagement today, and Simon Wild and Bula Bagel on our tech and live stream. Coventry City of Culture Trust and British Council for making this day happen. And last but not least, all of you for coming and taking part today. Yes, a round of applause for all of us. And also, there's going to be someone walking around here with a post-event survey. So before you go, please do fill that out for us. And we'll see you in April. Thank you.